So there's one funny fact about 2024-2025 season. Get one funny fact, one funny thing with the very, very am I allowed to use the word mysterious about 2024-25 season? In this season, 2024-25 season to be precise, we don't get a lot of people doing the first thing or their first ever thing or a good thing in a long time. Talking about football now. And I'm going to be giving us some funny facts and some funny stats to back up my claim or my prophetic prediction that came to pass a few hours ago when I said Manchester United were going to lose the Europa League final. Don't be say I be Mr. Noam all or I be Octopus Paul, but it is just how it is meant to be. We go make football world or the football franchise very, very, very competing and interesting. Now, in the year 2024-2025 football season, we got to see Newcastle United win their first trophy in a very long time after they defeated Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final that ended 3 goals to 2. Newcastle lifting their first trophy in a very, very, very long time. I'm not sure of the year precisely, but all of us know it's in a very long time because Newcastle are one of those things where we say every season they get to compete, they get to spoil your own journey to lifting something very important in the League Cup, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, or the league itself. But this season, they didn't just come out to complete the number of teams in the Carabao Cup final, in the Carabao Cup competition rather. They came out to complete. They competed and they won, defeating the crowned champions of the EPL, Liverpool, in the final 3-2. Now, I'm going to switch my attention down to Italy. We had Bologna. Obviously, they had a good season last season under Thiago Motta, who unfortunately isn't the coach anymore at Juventus. After a fallout with the management, they had to terminate his contract and both parties went their way. Of course, last season, Bologna they did very well. And that was where the world got to know about Joshua Zexi the Sexy, the 9.5 player Manchester United got from Bologna. But this podcast is not about Joshua Zexi. This podcast is about unraveling the mystery behind 2024-2025 season. Now, Bologna got to lift their first trophy in a very, very long time after they defeated a whole, I could call them again, a whole AC Milan. This AC Milan trashed the finalist of the UEFA Champions League from Italy, Inter Milan, 3-1 in the semi-finals. And everybody tipped AC Milan to go on and lift the Coppa Italia final, a Coppa Italia trophy, simply because they are a bigger side, a better side. Financially, they are more buoyant than Bologna. When it comes to their squad depth level, AC Milan has more squad depth. They have a lot of young players that are doing very well individually, but collectively as a team, they might not be doing well. In the final, Coppa Italia final, Bologna won, defeating AC Milan not by one, not by two, but by 3 goals to 1, thereby lifting their first trophy in a very, very, very long time. Now, back to England again. We all know how it's been for Manchester City, how they've had a poor run of season for them. It's been ups and down, and ever since their main man, who is the current holder of the Ballon d'Or award, Rodrigo, got injured and was ruled out for the rest of the season. Manchester City rather, finding it difficult maintaining a good run of form. At some point, they went 12, 13 games without a victory. It's too many losses and draws, which had to bring them down from the EPL League table down to a position they did not like. Now, they were fortunate enough to play well in the FA Cup and got to the final. And they faced a smaller side from London, Crystal Palace. Now, in the final, this smaller side got to humble the big boys, Manchester City, by a single goal courtesy of Eberechi's strike that earned Crystal Palace their first ever trophy in 120 years their club history, 120 years. Do you know how many 10 years they inside that 120? 12 solid decades. 12 solid decades. Crystal Palace were formed 120 years ago. No trophy, but they got to the final of this year's FA Cup against a big side, Manchester City, and they won. And they won their first ever trophy. Their first ever trophy. Now let's leave the football fraternity and come to individual talent. We all know Harry Kane, a player that has recorded countless number of goals, over 400 goals, club level, national team level together. Played a lot of games. He represented Tottenham for years. They came close to doing magic, creating magic, but every time it seems they are closer to achieving or unlocking greatness. That's when you see them fall down the pecking order. Now, this young man left Tottenham and went to Bayern Munich. In his first season, they say the Hurricane caused follow and go Germany. Bayern Munich went trophyless. They did not win any trophy. They lost the German Bundesliga to Bayern Leverkusen, thereby making Bayern Munich go trophyless last season. Now, fast forward to this season, he was able to come in, still maintain that same performance, scored a huge number of goals, so many important goals for for Bayern Leverkusen rather. And this season, he was able to win his first trophy as a professional footballer. This is someone that has played professional football for over a decade, scoring over 350 goals to 400 goals, recording countless number of assists, countless number of man of the match performances, countless number of good games. Now, at the age of 31, he got to win his first major title as a professional footballer. A lot of first thing, beautiful first things happening this year. Now, to the recent one that just happened in the Europa League. Of course, you know the two Europa League finalists are teams that have been very, very poor if you take into consideration the fact that these clubs are big clubs financially and otherwise. They have identical run of form in the league. They share almost the same points in the league. Now they were able to do well in the Europa League competition and they got to the final. These two teams played themselves and the smaller boys emerged victorious. Tottenham Hotspur defeated Manchester United by a single goal, courtesy of an own goal scored by Luke Shaw in the first half, thereby making Tottenham lift their first trophy in 75 years. Not just that, Young Min Son, a player that was bought from Bayern Leverkusen in 2012-2013 football season by Tottenham, 10 years of solid performances, 10 years of shaking the EPL, 10 years of putting up fine performances for the club, did not win any trophy. But in the 10th year, against a big club, Manchester United, in a big competition, in a big stage, in the finals of the Europa League 2024-2025 season, Young Min Song got to lift his first professional trophy at the age of 32. Now, isn't this a clear message that this year a lot of beautiful first things go happen? Now, some days ago, I sat down here, my studio, and I was able to analyze these things and I was able to come to a conclusion that this is just how it is going to be if we want to enjoy this beautiful game. A lot of first things go happen. Yes, it might not go well for your club, but don't see it as a bad thing. It is just one of those few times in the football history whereby teams will get to win something. At the same time, make them know see their let them feel what it means to let them taste success. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, this brings me down to this point. We still have the Champions League coming forth. We still have the Conference League final coming forth. Now, let me state this funny fact. The first time the Allianz Arena hosted the Champions League final was in 2012. Chelsea, Bayern Munich, and that was Chelsea's first Champions League trophy. Before then, they've not lifted the Champions League in their football history. Now, this year's Champions League final is between Paris Saint-Germain of France and Inter Milan of Italy. Inter Milan have lifted the trophy before, yes. This is PSG's second final in 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I am telling us today, for our punters listening and watching, today, take it from the TRF podcast. PSG is going to lift Champions League, making it their first official Champions League trophy as a football club, thereby joining the big boys in the big boys league. And now to the Conference League. It could shock a lot of Chelsea fans. Yes, they've spent a lot of billions trying to bring in young talent. But when you do it too much without mixing it with experience, it will backfire. And we've seen it in the league, ups and down every weekend. This week they are winning, next week they are dropping, this week they are winning, they are going up, coming down, going up, coming down. Now they have to fight till the final day in the EPL to be able to secure a Champions League spot come next season, 2025-2026 season. They're up against Nottingham Forest, but that aside, that's not what you're here for. The Conference League final between Chelsea and Real Betis, take it from the TRF podcast. Chelsea will go into that game with high confidence, their fans backing them up with huge numbers, supporting them from far and wide, even in that Spain, in that the opponent where they play against Real Betis, their home country there, they'll have enough of fans supporting them too. But believe you me when I tell you that Real Betis is going to shock them, just as Tottenham shocked Manchester United, and they will leave the trophy. How it is going to happen, I don't know. But at the end of the whole event on that very day, Real Betis will be crowned the champion of the Conference League. PSG is going to be crowned the champions of Champions League this season, just as Tottenham were crowned champions of the Europa League. Until we meet again, it's goodbye from all of us at TRF Podcast. Thank you as you watch, and please, your comments, your likes, your shares are important. Peace out.